Welcome to the Dr. Selma B Show. I'm the founder of Partner with Legacy, a company now moving into its second decade, helping schools become a place of purpose, passion, and innovation, primarily to end the achievement gap in mathematics. After more than 10 years of assisting educators in developing best practices within the school system's confines, I noticed that many of the challenges in transforming our school's culture and learning environment mirror those in our personal lives. To my M&N family, love you for your continued support. And you may have noticed that we have a new summer schedule. If this is your first time, sit back and get comfy. For my YouTube viewers, please be sure to click the subscribe button and also turn on the notifications by clicking the bell and choosing all so that you never miss our Legacy Ed News, community conversations with leaders, and new episodes of the Dr. Selma B Show. Thank you for showing Dr. B some love. Today's show is a special request from viewers like you. I heard from viewers who shared that I am always speaking about the importance of relationships. However, I have not done an episode on love and love relationships. Okay, let's get into it. Before we get on our usual deep dive, I know you're not guilty of the following. Most people usually overflow their cups with nostalgia about the past. And as they drink from this cup, they begin to suffer from what I call historic amnesia and conjure up stories about simpler times in history and in the past when men and women always stayed together, married, found their soulmates, and these were the best of times. Beloved, that is far from the truth. Love relationships are complex. Yes, marriage did not end up in divorce court, because marriage is a contract and a binding agreement between two people, and most importantly, a union of families and communities. And so, for example, for people of color who were enslaved, the intention was to break up the family, and children were torn away from their mothers and fathers. And when slavery ended, Black people had two major priorities. They wanted to find their families, and they wanted to be educated. And we have yet to deal with what I call post-traumatic slave syndrome, the remnants of abandonment, alcohol, abuse, criminalization of Black men, poverty as a result of slavery. All of this impacts love relationships. Guess what? This is the Dr. Selma B Show. And we're here to be brave warriors together and talk openly about life and life's challenges. If you're dating or married or in a relationship, what are the things that you have to be willing to examine and reflect upon to grow in your love relationship? Also, I'm hopeful that this will help you make decisions if you're considering coupling with someone. I'm not going to spend today's show on the process and all of the fun in and out of dating. I would like to say to you that I want you to use our talk today to inform your goals and priorities for dating, drafting your profile if you're going to step into the online dating world, or maybe you're considering hiring a matchmaker. Here are my top 6. The first one is values. Your values reflect the things that you hold in high regard. It reflects the things in life that you are willing to make sacrifices for, and what you or whoever you partner with are willing to spend your time, your money, and your energy towards. When two people decide to come together as a couple, you often fail to consider values because you get lost in the chemistry and the physical attraction and the fun of dating. However, a courtship should give you time to figure out a person's core values. So for example, if you're a person who loves to travel, but the other person is only concerned about buying red bottoms or other material things, then you won't be able to be on the same page about shared goals and what sacrifices you are both willing to make. Values are also hard to figure out because they get wrapped up in a person's family narrative and stories. You must closely listen to stories to figure out how a person goes about making a decision and what core values informs their decision making. For examples, values become harder to figure out when a person is hurt and needs time to mature and to do the work to heal and articulate what he or she wants or don't want in a relationship. And if that person rushes into a relationship with you because they're seeking to escape their family history, or in a relationship because that is what they think others want of them, it becomes difficult for them to articulate what they want. Then he or she may not be able to voice the things that are worthy. When a person's core values are opposite to yours, then you may find yourself disconnected and in a relationship where you're constantly arguing about what to do with your time, where to spend your money, and most importantly, your energy will be drained. Number 2, communication. How you communicate in each and every relationship reflects your sense of confidence and your ability to take risks and resolve life's challenges. When a person does not know how to get his or her point across, as well as how to listen and adjust, then relationships end up fractured. The broken pieces and the broken relationships end up filling spaces in our hearts and mind and becomes what is often referred to as baggage. The baggage includes the long list of exes, the baby mama and the baby daddy drama, self-inflicted harm from drug, alcohol, and sex. The broken communication is part of root causes. So for example, people don't know when and how to say no because of feelings of guilt. Most women and men need to learn how to say no without being disrespectful. So for example, no, I don't want to have sex without a condom. No, I don't want to have another drink. No, I don't want to go there. It's challenging if you've never learned and if you haven't practiced and if you feel some sense of shame and guilt in saying no. Beloved, most importantly, we must also learn how to talk to ourselves and be able to articulate what we want for ourselves and the lifestyles you are seeking. Trust that the personal growth we experience from knowing and connecting with our inner selves will in turn benefit our relationships with others and will make those relationships blossom. Let's talk about commitment. As you seek to find and build a life with a loved one, it's necessary to talk about commitment. Now you may say, Dr. B, it's a given that commitment is part of this puzzle as we discuss love relationships. Beloved, not everyone goes into a relationship with that understanding. There's a lot of people not living right and wanting to just play the game. The results from a relationship where there's no commitment can be catastrophic to self-esteem, our sense of security, and it often leaves you so hurt that you can dwell in that hurt and get stuck. I know that there are individuals who boast about being okay with an open door relationship. Most women tell themselves that they may end up with a sugar daddy, or they don't allow a man with the long rope to do whatever he wants to do, because sooner or later he'll see the light and realize that she's the best thing that ever happened to him, and all the other women will fall away. It never works that way. A commitment is about demonstrating devotion and valuing the person that you are in that relationship with. To build trust in a relationship Both parties must be willing to take a pledge of loyalty. And taking a pledge is not enough. Each person has to demonstrate through actions that they're going to show respect rather than erode a person's confidence. Let's also be honest and mindful about the message that is being pushed on us through social media. And what gets a lot of attention and what is being seen as admirable is hiding behind the texting, the sexting, the partying, and the bad girl and bad boy behavior. I also want to caution you that obedience is not the same as commitment. So for example, I meet women who demand that if they're in the church, then the person that they're dating all of a sudden has to walk the same path they are walking. What they are demanding is obedience. And because you have power and you're seeking to use that power to bend a person to go in a particular direction, and she wants to convince herself that if the person is there physically, then they're in a committed relationship, that is far from the truth. It doesn't work, and it never works. Commitment requires boundaries. Boundaries that create a safe space, an empowering space for each person in a relationship to draw from and grow from. It's a place where you can meet up with the challenges in life, whether that challenge may be an unexpected diagnosis, dealing with a loss, raising your child, dealing with career growth. It's a space where you show up and demonstrate an ability to acknowledge another person's pain and how to respect a person's pain without overtaking it. Let's talk about finances. I intentionally put communication up front on the list because if you grew up in a household where you never learned how to talk about money, then how will you figure out how to do it in a relationship? In countries where they claim the divorce rates are low, what they don't tell you or me is that the divorce rate is low because there are very few divorce courts. And in an arranged marriage, you're forced to stay in the marriage. If you're a woman from a low socioeconomic background, then she knows that she's not going to end up with any property in a divorce if there's no prenuptial arrangement. Everyone has debt and debt burdens, and society tells you every day that you are your credit score. Beloved, you're not your credit score. And you have to move past that vulnerability if you're going to grow in a partnership. Also in a relationship, you have to find your voice to communicate your goals, your expectations, and what financial support, if any, you need and you want. And in this modern world, the message is to be Cinderella while also being told that women and men are equal. It's confusing at times, to say the least. Finances and money are about responsibility. One of my favorite writers, Susie Orman, writes a great deal about money and being responsible to the ones you love. Let's talk about sex and intimacy, as Salt and Pepper sings.
Let's talk about sex.
Sex and intimacy goes hand in hand. However, the act of having sex doesn't mean that two people will grow closer together or grow more curious about each other. First, admit that not everyone is looking for love and intimacy. Second, men and women are different. Third, the act of sex and being a sexual being is linked with power. Now, you may not be ready for me to tell you this. Men usually draw their power and sense of self from money and also their ability to physically dominate. What most modern women may not want to understand is that you as a woman may love your independence and making your own money, but the shifting of power outside the bedroom impacts what happens or does not happen between the sheets. The goal should be for both parties to become skillful lovers, but to become skillful, you have to want to learn about your body and how your body works overall, what you eat, how much alcohol you consume, how much exercise do you get, hygiene, all impact sex and intimacy. Sadly, most men and women learn about sex from watching TV, watching porn, and limited conversations with friends, and that's who will show up often. Education matters. To be a skillful lover, you must hone and develop a unique ability to direct and redirect a person's energy in the most intimate of moments. That takes confidence, tact, and patience. Once again, communication becomes central. Finally, you have to schedule and make time to date and to spend time with your partner or your lover. Think about it. Whenever you've heard anyone talk about being cheated on, they always say, when did that person find the time? Well, guess what? The answer is simple. They made time. So if you want to have great sex and more intimacy with your partner, make time for it. Finally, let's talk about spirituality. We all have in our souls the capacity to love ourselves and others. However, we are challenged with finding ways to express that love. When we are faced with difficulties in life from work, health, and making it through the day, we don't always do what's supposed to come naturally. We feel threatened and vulnerable, so we become tight and reach to hold on and take control. To be in a relationship with someone, you must let go of despair and reach for hope and remain hopeful. That requires trusting in a higher power and being willing to accept the grace of today and being present in each and every moment. Spirituality requires you and I to understand what it means to be enough, to have enough, and to let go of the mindset of constantly seeking more and more and more. Spirituality is also important in your relationships because you have to have an understanding of how another person comes to know and understand the world around them. We make sacrifices for those we love, and that's being human. But we shouldn't make those sacrifices in order to be put in a position of being able to take advantage of the other person. Having a relationship with a creator and a higher power matters in a relationship because there has to be dignity between two people. And you cannot give yourself to another and lose your dignity. In loving a person, giving and receiving love, you discover and we discover who we are. Finally, there's not another creature in this world that is able to will themselves self-transformation. Love transforms us all. Beloved, you may question whether all 6 values, communication, commitment, sex and intimacy, finances, and spirituality has to be perfectly aligned to make every relationship work. Granted, you may be in a relationship right now where the communication is not great or you're frustrated about your finances. We're in this space together, and it's not a perfect world. However, my goal is always to arm you first with the knowledge and the tools needed to navigate and take small steps. Remember, we have to have compassion for ourselves. Start with one area that you want to work with your soulmate to strengthen. And if you're not in a relationship, then I want you to consider these as you articulate what's important to you and what you are seeking in a future partnership. Until next time, be courageous, be curious, and lean into your true nature and your awesomeness. Thanks in advance for forwarding and sharing today's show with someone you love and want to encourage. Invite them to be a part of our community of warriors. Don't forget to help Dr. B break the YouTube glass ceiling. Show Dr. B the love by liking, following, and subscribing. I invite you to check out one of our Community Conversations with Leader webinars or Legacy Ed News. And remember to join me on Instagram and Twitter to continue the conversation. I would love to hear your thoughts about today's topic and any suggestions for future shows you may have. I love you for watching. Saying thanks is not the same as giving thanks, and I give thanks for you. Based on your position at a policy level, at a state level, and having to listen and having a really broad view of what's happening at a state level, and I know you also connect also to federal level, I want to talk a minute about how the pandemic has affected our middle school learners and our high school learners. What are you hearing, and what is it that you have learned from this year?
Sure. So I think there are two main issues as we look to reopen schools. The first is that, the world of work, right, has been pushed into the virtual landscape during the pandemic. And that's not really going to change, even though we're trending towards reopening. Politico reported not long ago that 4 in 10 companies are not able to fill positions in tech-related jobs. And there are other industry reports circulating currently that talk about the fact that as many as 8 in 10 American jobs will require at least some digital literacy skills. So we look at those realities against the fact that we're faced with really a digital equity crisis, particularly in New York State. And what does that mean for educators? It means that we've got to be empowered to help develop our young people in terms of their skill set so that they can be prepared for the 21st century workforce. You may recall we recently hosted a series of digital equity forums, the two of 3, actually. We have another one coming up in June. And in preparation for that, we conducted a digital equity survey that went out to the field. We did receive more than 99% responses from the field, which was a great return. And the number of students across the state who lack access to technology is 8%, or 216,000 students across the state who lack access. But what also surprised us was the number of teachers who lack access to a device. And so what the survey laid bare was that there are also over 8,000 teachers across the state of New York who do not have either access to a device or a reliable internet connection. So I think we have to be thoughtful about how best to move forward. These are issues of affordability. There's also supply chain issues. And those are issues that are bigger than ourselves. They require the involvement of our local, state, and federal lawmakers. Some are getting involved in that right now. Congressman Bowman has put up some draft legislation about the affordability and accessibility of internet access to our low-income communities. But all of that also needs to be taken in tandem with the fact that our young people, in terms of mental health, are experiencing some challenges. And whereas the loneliness of the pandemic, really was impactful on young people, returning to school is also impactful because it's another adjustment. If you look at students who are transitioning from elementary school to middle school and from middle school to high school, there are students who haven't maybe even been in their school yet.
That's right.
Freshman in high school. And so